One of the shifts that seems to be happening with or without our permission is that we live in a world that is increasingly open, where great ideas, great performance, great contribution can come from, anyone, anywhere in the world, right, as long as they have the right channels to participate, and that the job of the leader increasingly is to sort of create and cultivate those channels. So in that world, what you see happening, or maybe what we hope might happen, is will more natural hierarchies emerge, in the sense that the people who are worth following become the leaders. The people who create the most value accrue the most power. That's a fluid situation. It's dynamic. It's not just, I'm the CEO, I sit in this office, so I have all the power, I have all the information, I have all the authority. Is that something we have to prepare for as leaders? Is your description of the better boss really preparing for that world?
Well, it is interesting because in many ways what you're describing, and this has been described lots of places, is the switch from command and control organizations to what is almost like a gardening analogy. But it is interesting how many organizations today are hybrid. So a friend of mine, who's now a venture capitalist, named Michael Deering, he worked for eBay in the first 8 or 9 years. His last job was head of eBay North America, quite senior person. So if you hear him describe, and this is not a criticism of Meg Whitman, she did a very good job. He described the sort of what happened within eBay. It was pretty command and control within eBay over who I got, what positions, and much they got paid, blah, blah, blah. But Michael describes managing the eBay community, and it's like he said, it's a good thing I like gardening, because it was this sort of like natural thing, and you could do little things to gently sort of shape what happened. And he actually has this beautiful little talk. The first time I ever heard him give a talk some years ago, when he was still at eBay, he said you either had price tag, so you could give people incentives. With eBay, they do things with sort of like the pricing. You had rules, so you could sort of like take out the pen or write rules. Or you had sunshine, you had the flashlight. So you could just make things public about what happened. He said, or make things less public. And he said, those were sort of the 3 levers you had to pull. And I really like that analogy, that you're a gardener, and very often those are the 3 things that you have, and we're moving to a world where that's more and more the case. But he would even say that in running organizations, increasingly, those things, money, rules, and sunshine, aren't so bad. Even if you look at the most participative firms and organizations where it sort of meets the standard, where there's freedom and participation and decentralization, nonetheless, they're almost, and this is just the nature of human and animal groups, there's almost always somebody who has decision rights and authority. And I give you an example. I already mentioned that an organization I love very much is Mozilla, that brings us Firefox. John Lilly, he's sort of still CEO, and he's sort of a venture capitalist, so he's right in between doing both of them, but he built them up from 16 to some 500 folks. And if you look at Mozilla, on one hand, there's literally thousands of people throughout the world who participate in writing the code and quality control. It's this very open source sort of thing. Nonetheless, there's only 7 people in the world, at least last time I checked, it might be 9 by now, but I think it's still only 7, who have decision authority about what goes in that code, and only 2 have ultimate authority over the whole database. So even in the case of the most participative organization, you got to have these czars who make the final decisions, so that people understand that it's sort of over, it's time to stop participating, this is what we're going to run with. And by the way, in that story, which brings us to your modern organization, one of the people who does not have authority is John Lilly, the CEO. So that's what always cracks me up. And I've said, John, so let me understand this. You're CEO of a company, and you don't have final authority over what goes in the product, but other people do. And he said, well, I do help determine their pay when they work for Mozilla, so I have a lot of influence, but sometimes they don't listen to me anyways because I don't know as much as they do. And so there's sort of a funny organization. There's clearly authority, and there's some really weird participative stuff there too.